Hey, soccer fans, this is Nick with the Feed the Fire podcast, coming to you the week after the mighty Chicago Fire drew the villainous Inter Miami FC, CFFC, whatever. They drew Messi and Co. 0-0 at Soldier Field. As you can hear in my voice, I am just a little or kind of a lot of under the weather, but I didn't want to wait another day to get another episode out. We've got a segment from John Donovan coming your way talking about the match. We've got some big Chicago Fire news that I want to start with, that the Chicago Fire, according to Fabrizio Romano on Twitter, have made an approach to sign Kevin De Bruyne on a free transfer when he becomes a free agent at the end of this season over in England. He says De Bruyne says he's assessing all options in the next days and weeks, but the Chicago Fire are now showing a strong interest with a specific project to attract De Bruyne, says Fabrizio Romano, and he ends his tweet with "deal on," and that has been confirmed to Men in Red 97 Media's Alex Calabrese as well. So the Chicago Fire have reached out. They have talked to Kevin De Bruyne. They are prepared to meet his salary demands, which was somewhere in the 8-figure range. And from what's being reported, he would be the third highest player in MLS if this is the deal that he wants, behind Messi, and I think Insigne is still second, somewhere, 12 to $15 million money like that. And then it would be De Bruyne getting somewhere between 10 to 12 million dollars a season here. Joe Mansueto has opened the pocketbook, and the idea is just to sell De Bruyne on coming to Chicago versus, say, Inter Miami, if they can somehow move their roster or compliance around a bit and get that situated. I still think they have his negotiating rights or his quote-unquote discovery rights, but that can be purchased by the Chicago Fire for allocation money, the million of which they have, since they currently have the 2 DP 4 under 22 spot. And if they do sign De Bruyne to a DP deal, then that means at the July window, they will convert from a 2 DP 4 under 22s, excuse me, to a 3 DP 3 under 22 roster, and then they'll lose that second $1 million a game in the second half of the season. So the Chicago Fire are, they said we're going big here. Like, they have the young core, they have some experienced attack, they have, some decent defenders. This is the time for them to make these moves. And if they bring De Bruyne over to Chicago, he would immediately make the Chicago Fire a playoff team. I think right now, I've always said the Fire aren't a playoff team until they are a playoff team. And this season they look like one. They're above the line right now in the Eastern Conference standings. I shouldn't say above the line. They're in 8th, so they'd be in the playing game right now. Now that we've gotten through 8 games, we're about a quarter of the way through the season, a little less probably if you want to throw in some of the cup games and some of the other stuff going on. But the Chicago Fire, if they can get Kevin De Bruyne, he can absolutely unlock, I think, Hugo Kuipers, Jonathan Bamba, Philip Zinkernagel. Those guys won't have to do as much in the buildup. It could be De Bruyne in the middle with Pineda, Acosta, potentially Gutierrez. The speculation out there is, why would you bring in Kevin De Bruyne and keep Gutierrez next to him? It'd be one thing to have 2 really, really good attackers, but are you really going to want then just to rely on one defensive mid with as banged up of a back line as you do have? Now, hey, maybe everyone gets healthy and they're willing to do that and play attacking soccer and really put opposing teams on their back heels. But some of the speculation, as I was getting to, is that now Gutierrez could be potentially sold. If they're going to bring De Bruyne in to run the midfield from an attacking standpoint, they're going to sell Gutierrez off and probably pay half of that De Bruyne salary potentially. Now, I haven't heard any sort of reporting on that or even rumors on it. It's just speculation. But can you imagine De Bruyne as the attacking mid with Kellen Acosta, Sergio Orahel behind him, and then just him feeding balls to Kuipers, Bamba, Zinkernagel, and whoever else is making those runs forward? That would be pretty spectacular. And I'm sure De Bruyne would have his fair share of goals as well, pushing up in that attack with the options of either driving forward or playing out to the wing. So something to keep an eye on, Chicago Fire fans. Keep an eye on Kevin De Bruyne and what he wants to do. Of course, the Saudi League is throwing money at him, but does he want that quality of life for the next couple of years or so versus the money that he could make? Or does he want to come over here to Chicago, be one of the faces of Major League Soccer, be one of the three highest paid players in the league, and then continue to have, a good life here in the United States, and then, open up all sorts of other opportunities for him in the future potentially. So something, like I said, to keep an eye on. Thanks to Fabrizio Romano for posting about that. Thanks to Alex Calabrese for posting about that. Thanks to everyone else who's just fueling the speculation and adding to the discourse online. Like, a lot of people think this is a terrible move, that we're going to overpay, that it's going to be Shaqiri part 2. There's other people who think this is a great move. Anytime you can get this kind of talent, you have to do it. He's still got a couple good years left in him. Some people are saying this is ridiculous. The Chicago Fire, are chasing their white whale here. They're never going to get this big name again. Like, he could still play in Europe if he wanted to. Why would he come to Chicago? And then, of course, there's the anti-MLS and anti-America soccer trolls out there who are like, who are the Chicago Fire? Never heard of this team before. Okay, fine. Of course, you've never heard of the team that players like Bastian Schweinsteiger and Xherdan Shaqiri came and played for. Sure. Okay. And Cuauhtemoc Blanco. Exactly. So anyway, that's the Kevin De Bruyne talk right now. Let's turn our attention to this past weekend, where the Chicago Fire actually drew Inter Miami 0-0. The Fire's first clean sheet of the season, and I think the first time that Miami have been held scoreless this season as well. So it wasn't for lack of trying. Miami had a couple of great opportunities. The Chicago Fire had some absolute gems of chances late in the game. Bamba had a couple moments to put it away for the Fire late, and I think he just used all his energy to make that late run, and then just didn't have anything left for a good finish at the end. But it ends up being a 0-0 draw. That's one of those where if they say you're going to draw Miami when Messi and Suarez and Busquets and Alba and all those guys play, when they have pretty much their starting 11, you're going to take that. But the way it unfolded, it really, I was exhausted watching that game. Those last 15, 20 minutes or so were just exhausting, because there were so many good opportunities for Chicago in that match. And oh, by the way, there was a moment in the game where Gutierrez takes the ball off Messi's feet, turns, plays a pass between the legs of a Miami defender, and that made all the MLS highlight packages this weekend as well, especially on their Tecker videos or whatever it is. So, the Fire there absolutely making a little bit of press here. I actually am going to look up right now, because I could not figure out who the MLS team of the week was, and if Chris Brady had made another appearance on the team of the match day. That's it. Where is it? Here we go. Because just because of how well he played in that match. So nope, no Chicago players on it. Once again, none even on the bench. But oh well. I guess when you don't score goals, you don't get shouts for team of the match day. Anyway, here's the recap of the match. It was a good game. I expected Chicago to start a little faster and a little better, but when you are kind of scrapping together a team here, it was almost a choice 11, but you had Jack Elliott in there, who's banged up, and you were hoping you didn't have to use any early subs in this match. But you had almost your starting 11 for the Chicago Fire. Brady and net, Gutman at the left back, Omari Glasgow at the right back. Barroso was out hurt. And this actually was a really interesting move, trying to play that wingback system. And at the beginning, you could tell Glasgow was getting pulled out of position. He got caught too far up the field, and Miami started to counterattack and exploit that space that was left by Glasgow. But very quickly in the game, he started to realize he's got to make those recovery runs, and he's got to have those defensive responsibilities, as well as getting into the corners in the space and playing a little 1-2 with Zinkernagel. So Glasgow adapted during the match, which is an excellent sign for a young player like that, for him to be able to recognize, oh, shoot, if I am going to push this far forward, which Berhalter wants me to, which my teammates want me to, I have to make my recovery runs. And that's exactly what he was doing for the majority of the game. And Miami could not use that space or use that inexperience of Glasgow to their advantage. You had your starting center backs, Turan and Jack Elliott. Great to see Jack Elliott back out there after missing some time with injury. You had your midfield of Brian Gutierrez, Sergio Orhel, and Mauricio Pineda. And by the way, people, if they haven't noticed, Pineda has been one of the best passers in MLS over the last couple seasons based on completion percentage. And people were saying how great it is to see Pineda on one side and Busquets on the other side, two of the best passers, at least statistically, in Major League Soccer. Chicago's front three was Jonathan Bamba on the left, Philip Zinkernagel on the right, and Hugo Kuipers up top. And again, a lot of opportunities for these guys, just couldn't find the back of the net. We did see some late substitutions, and this is what had me worried a little bit during this match, because let me click over to the summary page here, and I can tell you exactly who all these subs were. You saw Inter Miami bring in Jordi Alba and Allende in the 59th and 60th minutes for Aviles and Segovia. Then shortly after that, Jack Elliott picks up a yellow card. Then Yannick Bright comes in for Federico Redondo. So you have three subs in for Inter Miami, and the Fire haven't made any changes, and they have three players with yellow cards at this moment. For me, I'm getting a little nervy here because I didn't know what Berhalter wanted to do. Was he going to make the early sub? Was he going to be reactive? Was he going to just try and ride out his starters as long as he could? Because he knew if he could beat Miami, it was going to be his starters who were going to do it, and it was going to be a statement win. Fortunately, I titled this episode Statement Draw because of the play of the Chicago Fire tactically and with their bench guys coming in after the 71st minute. It was Haile Selassie in for Gutierrez in the 71st. It was Jay Davila and Romani Kwame coming in for Pineda and Zinkernagel in the 80th. It was Acosta and Barlow coming in for Orhel and Kuipers in the 85th. But what you saw was that Berhalter kept the shape and the tactics very, very similar. He was, if you want to be a glass half empty person, and you can say it's because he had to, like he hasn't had time to train these guys. But on the positive side of things, it was effective. You were getting opportunities with the style of play that you had. And it was just a matter of, is Kuipers going to bang one in before he gets home? Is Zinkernagel going to knock one in or before he gets subbed? Is Zinkernagel going to knock one in before he gets subbed? How crazy would it have been if Bamba gets on a break and just lays one off for Tom Barlow to tap in like the 89th minute or something like that? That would have been a wild ending to this match. But it was working, but unfortunately the Fire just didn't have the finishing touch in that game. And of course, we got to give credit to Chris Brady for keeping the clean sheet, as well as the defense. There were some moments of scramble there. There were some nervy moments in the back that on other days or perhaps in seasons past, those get scored against the Fire, but not on the weekend and not against Inter Miami. Statistically speaking, the Fire had 49% possession, 16 shots, 7 on goal. So decent offensive night. Blocked 5 shots. They had 465 total passes with an accuracy percentage of 85. So a decent offensive night. Now you want to look at Miami. Miami actually strung together 538 passes at an 85% completion rate. So they had the ball just a little bit more than the Fire and absolutely made that little bit of extra time into tons of different passes. The Fire took 4 corners, had 5 crosses, were offside 3 times. Their XG was 1.7 compared to Miami's 1. Now, Brady was only credited with 3 saves. Meanwhile, Miami's keeper, and his name is escaping me here, it was not Drake Callender in this match, ended up with 7 saves. So the Fire were creating opportunities. But again, if you're going to have 7 saves by the keeper, 7 shots on goal, I would hope you'd have a little bit more than a 1.7 XG. So I'm trying to do math in my head here. I can't, but it's a pretty low percentage for a lot of those shots. Defense had 6 clearances, 12 fouls, 5 yellow cards, no reds given. And so that is the statistical breakdown of this game. We are now going to jump right into John Donovan's segment while I give my voice a little bit of a break here so we can bring it home as we look ahead to FC Cincinnati this next weekend. John, take it away.
Nick, John Donovan here talking about the MLS and the Chicago Fire. Nick, what a game today. 0-0, but super exciting. I went down with my grandson to watch him play in a game, and then we went over to Soldier Field, and literally, Nick, The days of the old Chicago Fire are done. We have got classic management. We've got power on the bench. We have a good starting squad. And better than anything is we've got American players on the field that are performing at an incredible level. You've got to state, like right now, Brady's got to be one of the best goaltenders in this league. Hopefully he stays with us for the remainder of this season and maybe another season. But his skill level, he frustrated Messi today on two great direct kick shots that in a normal circumstance, Messi would have scored. You could see he was frustrated, but like any player, I guess, impressed with Brady. And then over that, if you've listened to me, I'm always looking for those great American players. And it seems like finally we have a coach and a squad that's going to promote Chicago players. Today, I looked up, we had 4 homegrowns on the field. We had Gutierrez, Pineda, Gutman, who wasn't a homegrown but grew up around here, and Oriel. And all of them played a very significant, valuable part of this game. They were head-to-head with everybody out there. The game itself started out kind of slow. There were some moments in the Fire's play where Miami just sat back and waited. Terran seemed a little bit confused on how to break out the ball, and that's something that I'm sure Berhalter is working with diligently because it's still very unsafe to come out of the back the way they're doing it. They don't seem to get that wing pass going quite as quick as I'm sure it should happen so that you can break this press against them. But just a great game. I think that the squad, they've got basically 3 right fullbacks or wing positions. And today, I wasn't high on Glasgow last week, but today this guy played one hell of a game. I mean, he literally took over that side and played exceptionally well. He had some beautiful crosses. Great game. And then one of my favorites on the field is Bambia. Bambia and Gutman have just opened up that left side like we've never seen here in Chicago. Gutman it's so good to see him back, and it's so good to see him play unhurt. And we've never seen where he can take us with this Bambia. It's something to look forward to this season. And then Oriel, I love watching this kid play and develop. He's getting the awareness of the field real well. He's becoming a tougher player, which in this league you really got to have. It's going to be interesting to think we have another designated player spot that we could pull out, but I would prefer for the club to just stay with what they got. Let Berhalter keep developing these young guys because he's got a bench full of good players that all can fit in. I mean, last couple of years, if we were down a starting player, we had nobody to really come in for him, and we had no techniques behind it. Today, we've got the talented management, and we have the players to compete in this league. I think Chicago, I would imagine, say 5 or 6 years from now, Chicago has its own stadium, and it's filling it every week. So, Nick, thank you very much. There was no bad players this week. Everybody was, they were up for this Miami game, and they played a beautiful game. Take care, guys.
John, thanks so much for your contributions to the show. Thank you for your analysis on that one, your breakdown. And yeah, it was an exciting match. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go. Just church and family obligations prevented me from seeing this match, but happy to hear that the Chicago Fire had a record crowd. It was the largest crowd in Chicago Fire history, 63,000. And I mean, he was even more than the first game against Miami when they sold 61,500. So over 63,000 at this match, largest attended match in Chicago Fire history. And there you have it. Everyone came out to see Chris Brady stonewall Leo Messi in this one. But John, you sent me your recording prior to the Kevin De Bruyne news, so you got to let me know what you think about that. And what do you fans out there feel like? Because yeah, Chicago's kind of at a crossroads here a little bit. They've got some good stuff going tactically and coaching wise and managerially. They've got some good talent here. They're flirting with that playoff line right now. They're about to get into a real tough part of their schedule. Miami, Cincinnati, and Atlanta, Orlando coming up. So, do we think that the Fire should kind of stand pat and just ride the season out and see where we can go, and then continue to build on it for next year, or do we have to go for it? See, I think in other leagues you could stand pat and develop and kind of grow into a more dominating team, a better team, a trophy contention team. But in MLS, when you have a window, you have to go for it, because you're going to have guys like Chris Brady, like Brian Gutierrez get sold. You're going to have people come calling, if Hugo Kuipers has a golden boot season, heck, you might even get a call for him from some other teams. You're going to have to listen to people who have an interest in an Amari Glasgow, in a Sergio Orhel, in I'm spacing right now, but I'm potentially a Justin Reynolds, or you're going to have to move Justin Reynolds up and get him a lot more minutes, because he's going to be taking over for you as a defender if you're going to move on Leo Barroso. There we go. So, John, I think we got to go for it. I think they have to go out, get that Kevin De Bruyne type of a signing, and then really try to see if they can't win a trophy this year. Wow, I'm really getting ahead of myself. Did I just say the Chicago Fire are going to push for a trophy in 2025? Well, I guess crazier things have happened. But, you've got to go for it over the next year or two. Now, we don't know what the roster makeup is going to look like next year. We don't know what calls the team is fielding, but I think you've got a really good squad here, and I would hate to see them turn over an entire roster just this past offseason and then have to do it again, but get rid of core pieces like a Gutierrez or a Turan. However, we'll just have to wait and see, because if they can get a De Bruyne and they can start winning some games, and they can, potentially make some postseason waves, then that could be a substantial thing. Then the Fire could perhaps be like an Inter Miami light, where you've got Hugo Kuipers up front, and then you've got Kevin De Bruyne in the middle, and then they're going to build around that. You're going to build around a Kevin De Bruyne, and I think that is how Fabrizio Romano put it in his tweet, that they're selling him on a project. So yeah, potentially you are going to see a handful of these homegrowns, these young players, get transferred out in order to build a trophy winning club around De Bruyne. So John, you tell me what you think. Do you think you got to go for it? Fans, what do you think? You got to go for it while you can here in MLS? And when are the Fire going to go for it? When should they go for it? You can obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, leave your comments below. You can email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com, or reach out at Glasshouse Soccer on social media. Now let's take a little bit of a look ahead as we preview the Chicago Fire's next match against FC Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati is sitting third in the Eastern Conference. They have 16 points, 5 wins, 2 losses, and a draw, 10 goals for, 9 against, goal differential of +1. They are coming to Chicago. Their road record, 2 wins and 2 losses. They are much better at home, 3 wins and a draw. So that is going to give the Chicago Fire a slight advantage there, that they are a worse team on the road. But who are the players to watch here for Cincinnati thus far? So Da Silva Ferreira is their leading goal scorer with 4 goals. And Kevin Danke, a surprise, I think, to a lot of people outside of Cincinnati, is their second leading goal scorer with 3. They only have 3 other players who have contributed: Yaya Kubo, Sergio Santos, and Gerardo Valenzuela, each with a goal apiece. Now, who's doing it for them as far as the chance creation, the playmaking? You have Pavel Buka leading the team with 3 assists, Da Silva Ferreira with 1, and DeAndre Yedlin with 1. Those are the only 3 players who have been credited with assists on the season. But if you want to look at key passes, which are passes that turn into a shot or a goal scoring opportunity, it's Buka leading the team with 17, Da Silva Ferreira with 13, Danke with 8, Corey Baird with 8, and then Sergio Santos, DeAndre Yedlin, Lucas Engel, all with 7. So when Cincinnati does get the ball and push forward, they are pushing players forward. They are attacking in numbers, and they they will play a team game. Now Celentano in net for FC Cincinnati has 24 saves on the season, so he hasn't really been doing a lot of work in net. But his passing percentage is only at a 32 or 72%. So he's probably playing a lot more long balls, and hopefully that favors the Chicago Fire when you've got tall guys like that, like Tehran, like a Gutierrez, like an Elliott, guys like that who can go up and win the ball. Plus, if he's going to be, or I shouldn't say plus, the drawback is if he's going to be playing long balls, then you are going to kind of take away a little bit of Chicago's pressing that they've done. And maybe that is something that Cincinnati would like to do, to get the ball over the top and get and take away Bamba, Zinkernagel, Kuipers, their pressing here. That being said, I'm not going to get in too much detail of it here. Again, I'm a little under the weather, and my voice is starting to run out on me here. But I do think this is a game that the Chicago Fire can win. Not only are they at home, they've got a lot of confidence coming off that Miami match. We've seen the tactics work. So I think it will be a great opportunity for them to move up into the playoff picture here against this FC Cincinnati team. Now, from a momentum standpoint, the Fire maybe have a little bit more momentum coming off of a statement draw, as I'm calling it. But Cincinnati are looking really good. They beat DC last week 1-0. They beat New England 1-0 the week before. They beat Nashville 2-1 the week before that. Before that, they drew Atlanta 2-2. And you have to go back to their match against Charlotte for the first game. They didn't get any points on March 15th. That was their last loss of the season. Looks like they're starting to get a little bit more of their legs back after CONCACAF Champions Cup, after a 2-leg series with Tigres, which saw them get knocked out of that tournament. So it is going to be a difficult match, without a doubt, for the Chicago Fire. But the way we've seen the Fire play, the way they're gaining confidence, the way they're able to bring in guys like Jay Davila and Romanique Kwame into the middle of the field to continue running that style that that Berhalter has instilled on them, that does give me some encouraging. That does encourage me that the Fire are going to be able to, again, at least create opportunities. And we saw them create lots of opportunities for Miami. The only thing, and this is going to roil a lot of USMNT fans, this is something we did see with Berhalter in the USMNT, where they're able to create a lot of offensive opportunities, but not a lot of goals. And that has always been the criticism of the United States now for a number of years, is that they don't have a goal scorer, someone who's going to create something out of nothing, either as an attacking player and create a key assist or a key pass, or a goal scorer who's just going to find the net every time. So we have to see if Berhalter's system has the right guys who will convert these opportunities, if they've done their homework and if they've done their scouting properly. Early returns suggest they have, but now let's see if they can do it against the Miami and Cincinnati and Atlanta and Orlando. These are weeks to get points to set yourself up for a better playoff seeding at the end of the season. Now, I want to conclude the show. This is something that Matt Doyle wrote about on MLSsoccer.com. He says, one stat defining every team so far, and looking at the Chicago Fire, he looks at Chris Brady, and the number he gives is 11, which is the number of defensive actions outside the penalty area that Brady has logged this season. That is 8th in the league, even with Patrick Schulte of Columbus. Now he says here, I'll just read what Doyle writes about Brady and his outside the box actions. Schulte and Brady are very different players. Schulte's calling card from day one was how comfortable he is with the ball in his foot. Brady, meanwhile, has always been more of a throwback, a pure shot stopper who had to polish up the other aspects of his game. Very true. Also, it's kind of hard to play out of the back and become a better player with your feet when you're getting peppered with shots from inside your 18 box the last few years, like Brady has been. All right, Doyle continues. It looks like that's what's happening under Greg Berhalter. Brady's not only making more defensive interventions outside of the box, a 40% increase over last year per 90, but he's launching far fewer goal kicks, playing shorter passes in general, and playing more passes per 90, which he's hitting with greater accuracy. So far, it's working. His shot-stopping numbers have been good, better than last year, in fact, while his passing numbers are an elite 83%, which is significantly higher than last year's 71%. He has not missed a short or medium range pass all year per FBref. But we do have to be mindful of how the core part of Zach Steffen and Matt Turner's respective games, keeping the ball out of the net, crumbled as more ball-playing responsibility was thrust upon them. If Brady starts showing those same signs, Berhalter's got to be ready to simplify. So something that Matt Doyle is watching on the Chicago Fire, especially defensively, he's watching Chris Brady develop into a player who still has that great shot-stopping ability, who's even improving it statistically this season, but also improving all other aspects of his game. And the caution there at the end, and I think it's a very real caution, is as a goalkeeper who his entire life has been playing inside the 18, who has been the kind of guy who's launching goal kicks, who, when you get to some of these higher levels, you can outshine other players and other defenders by launching those balls, right? Now he's at the highest level here in the United States in Major League Soccer, and he is having to learn a new skill set. Are we going to see a drop-off in his shot stopping? Something to be determined, something to keep an eye on. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. And somehow we managed to put together a 30-minute program, even though I have had, about 30% of my voice. Thanks to John Donovan. Thanks to our sponsor, Skira Icelandic Spring Water, available at your local 7-Eleven. Go out, grab a few bottles, especially as things start to warm up around Chicago. Stay hydrated. Thank you to everyone who's listening on whatever podcast channel you're on, wherever you're watching on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, do all that great stuff. Leave a comment, connect on social media. And as always, let's go Fire.